We welcome everyone to our next session of Travel Diaries. Today we have VP Mom, VP Shenoy, and Arun Mom, Arun Kamat, who will be taking us around Israel and Jordan. So I'll hand it over to them for the presentation.
Thank you. Thank you for attending. I'll start my presentation with a short Jewish prayer, which is, one sentence. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech, haolam hamotzi, l'chaim min haaretz amen, which means thank you, God, for the bounty that you have blessed us with. So let me start this presentation. We visited Israel in detail, or most parts of Israel, and Jordan. So talking about Israel, it is a country of 8.7 million people, 80 to 85% of whom are Jewish. There are 20% Arabs, not Palestinian, Arabs. Arabs have separate enclaves within the state of Israel, and they're barbed wires and restricted zones. Old Jerusalem, which is a significant part of our tour, is a 5,000-year-old city, something like Benares. But the size is just 1/3 square miles. So very small, and I'll show you pictures later on. And it has four distinct sections called quarters: Christian, Jewish, Muslim, and Armenian quarters. And there are 8 gates that are open into the city. And I'll talk about that also later on. So our first visit was to Old Jerusalem. So let's start with the slide presentation.
1 minute. Yeah. This the nama?
Why this?
Okay, good. Arun, nama? Yeah, nama. First slide for that.
Yeah.
Okay, 1 minute. Let me, if you want the map, I have to go to the PowerPoint, okay, whenever. One second. Okay. Okay. Arun, you can start, with this, and then I'll go to the picture side of the album. Okay.
So this essentially is our route that we took within Israel. So you see on the left, the map of Israel and the specific locations we went to, and the same with Jordan on the right-hand side. Jordan and Israel are in peace with each other. North of Israel is Lebanon, with whom Israel has a hostile relationship. And to the northeast of Israel is Syria, which does not get along with Israel as well. So,
next one.
Yeah.
Okay, Ram. I went too fast, but pardon me. Here we are. Okay. Watch it.
You want me to talk about this or the first slide?
Could you slide in? First picture.
So the scene of the city.
1 minute. Yeah.
I can talk about this too.
Yeah.
Let me talk about this.
No, okay. We can start with the picture album and then we'll require.
Yeah. Okay. So what this is are 2 pictures. One that is a tomb of David. Unfortunately, when they opened the tomb, they found nothing in there. But it's supposed to be the tomb of King David, who's the founder of Israel. He was the one that conquered Jerusalem, which was on a hilltop, and made that his home and as part of his empire. On the right-hand side, you'd see the site of the Last Supper of Jesus Christ. It wasn't like this. Obviously, this was created by the Romans when they took over Palestine. But essentially what it is a room. It wasn't even a room, a little area where there were little rock pedestals where all the apostles sat and, had their last meal. So just wanted to show you this. We could not take pictures of these when we were visiting, primarily because of light and thousands of people in there. So in the throng, we couldn't do much. Okay.
Arun, back to first picture on the album. Okay. Go ahead.
VP Mom, picture change.
Oh, second rather. Should have been there. You're still seeing the old picture?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. What did I do? Oh, sorry. I know what the problem is. Okay, sorry. Okay. How about now?
Nope.
Oh. This is the KAOCA Diaries. And here is the picture. How do I share it? I thought I am already in the...
VP Mom, maybe if you stop sharing and start sharing with
Oh,
your desktop,
yeah, I'm doing that. I stopped sharing.
and start sharing with your desktop rather than an application.
Application desktop. Okay. Atta?
Okay.
Okay.
So this is a photo of old Jerusalem from our hotel balcony. And what you see, the tower that you see is the Tower of David, of King David. We actually visited that tower and saw what you saw in the previous picture, the tomb of King David and the site of the Last Supper. It's a very historic place. And at one time, Israel wanted to give the site of the Last Supper to the Christian community as a gesture of goodwill. And the Jewish, extremists basically stopped the government from doing so. Okay. Okay. Now we are entering the old city of Jerusalem through the Damascus Gate. Now there are other gates also: New Gate, Herod's Gate, Lion's Gate, Excavation Gate, Dung Gate, Tanner's Gate, and Jaffa Gate. All these gates are open. There are 6 others that are sealed permanently. So over the periods of history, things have been changing. This is the banner you see all over Jerusalem. And what you see is, "My house shall be called a house of prayer for all peoples." And you'll see at the bottom here a message saying, the visitors are greeted with the namaste gesture, which essentially means, I bow to the divine in you. And it's a very good, a compliment to India and people of the Indian culture or Hindu culture to have Israel, honor it in this manner already. Okay, this is another site of the Tower of Jesus, Tower of David, where, as I pointed earlier, the tomb of King David and the site of the Last Supper are located. Okay, this is the picture in the background of the Al-Aqsa Mosque, the gold dome that you see. And in the background, this is a church bell tower. In the background, you see the Mound of Olives. This is the mountain that Jesus used to walk by to get into Jerusalem. And you might have heard a phrase, "and Jesus wept." This is where he did all his weeping, because he would see the struggles of the people from that height, the people struggling within the city and being, basically mistreated by the Romans. Okay. This is the Armenian church. Armenians have a lot of influence in Old Jerusalem. They have churches and other religious institutions, and, they control some of the portions of the church, meaning they provide service on a certain hour, on a certain day, in those churches. And the choir is just beautiful. They sing beautifully, and we'll give you a demonstration of that. Go ahead. Here again, an exhibit, showing the Armenian influence, a tavern. Of course, anybody can go in there, but basically it's an Armenian style tavern. Jerusalem bagels are very, very delicious. They're like US bagels, maybe a better flavor, because they flavor it with a spice called za'atar, which is a type of oregano. So, we can actually eat this whole bagel without actually drinking a sip of water. It's so, juicy, not juicy, soft, moist, and flavorful. This is a typical souk. You might have heard of souks in the Arab world, in the Middle East. This is the type of marketplace where people go to shop. You see a guy in a yarmulke there too, one of the KAOCA members.
He is the gully boy.
Already? Okay, this is the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. Sepulchre in Latin essentially means a sculpture. And this was actually built by Queen Helena, the mother of Emperor Constantine, 300 years after the death of Christ. And what it houses are the tomb of Christ, the actual location where he was crucified, and the stone that he laid on after he was taken away from the cross. So let's go into the church. So this is the slab where Jesus lay after he was brought down, and our wives really had a very emotional experience, bowing to Jesus Christ, and
people kiss and they wipe their clothes just to take the blessing.
Correct. And it's a very nice poignant experience. This is the tomb that they claim Jesus was entombed in. In those days, they would find a cave, place the dead body and cover it with a stone. And a month or so later, when the body was essentially decomposed, they would collect the bones and bury the bones separately somewhere. But that was the custom at that time. And they claim this is the tomb of Christ. And it's very hard to get in there. It's a very narrow passage. Go ahead. This is the tomb, the Church of the Holy Sepulchre again. Again, we are going through this church just to see the interiors, which are very beautiful interiors. A lot of relics that are of interest. And we enjoyed that and took a lot of pictures. Having completed that in the evening, we decided to go to the old Jerusalem train station. This is no longer active. It's, they've closed it and they made it into a shopping mall. And you can see this handsome couples being photographed under a heart-shaped architecture, which is illuminated at nights. This is the Jerusalem Archaeological Museum, which has many excavated materials, that belong to Jewish history that are in this particular museum. And then beyond that is the western wall of the temple, of the second temple. So this is going towards the temple in the old. This is the path that Jesus took when he went to the temple in his day, that they have uncovered. The Israeli government does an excellent job, preserving these sites and maintaining them well, primarily for religious tourism and, to keep their culture alive.
Yeah, I might add, between the four quarters, the Jewish quarter is very active in preserving, discovering the relics from the past, whereas the other don't spend time, especially the Muslim quarter doesn't spend any money, and they think money meaning they're not that involved in continuing.
Okay, so this is the Western Wall. This is again a retaining wall. It's not the wall of the temple as it existed in 60 AD. This is a retaining wall where the Jews pray, every day. So these are Orthodox Jews who are praying in front of the wall. People then put in, crevices, messages to God, asking God for forgiveness or bless them with whatever, a son or daughter or whatever it is, or with a lot of wealth, whatever the case may be. And the government actually cleans the wall every 6 months and removes all this debris because, that might ruin the wall as it stands. This is a cupboard that is against the wall where the Torah is based, and people who come there for religious ceremonies have access to the Torah. The Torah is like the Jewish Bible, their religious textbook. And as you'll see, there are some rabbinical ceremonies that are held there, and also bar mitzvahs, which is like a thread ceremony for Jewish girls and boys. Again, a scene of Orthodox Jews praying in front of the Wailing Wall. This is the courtyard, facing the Wailing Wall or the Western Wall, and you're looking into the city, into the residential areas. And there are many different ways to come in and out, and this is one way, as you can see by the cursor that's being pointed at. There's a lot of construction going on here, as you can see, that spoils the view, but otherwise it'll be a very nice photograph. You can see Kolel Chabad. This is one of their restaurants and kitchens. Yeah. This is the innermost section of the wall, which they claim that it comes very close to the altar of the original temple. So there's a big crowd that prays here in this area on a daily basis. It's a very poignant experience for anybody, even if he's non-Jewish. So this is our guide, and this is one of the Konkani tourists.
Arun, one quick question. Why do they call it temple versus synagogue or something?
The same thing, a Jewish temple or synagogue.
Okay. Good.
This is another entrance towards the Wailing Wall site. And again, you see the Al-Aqsa Mosque. As you can see, it's built over, literally over the little mountain over the temple. And this happened, soon after the Muslim conquest of Palestine.
Remember Babri Masjid?
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Following that, there's a marketplace known as the Cardo, C-A-R-D-O, where we are walking towards. It's a shopping area with, boutique stores and, different little, gift items that you can buy. And we are walking towards that. This used to be an ancient Roman pathway. And I'll show you an example of it in the next slide.
And who is this?
Another
carrying guy?
Konkani guy.
Oh, okay.
So this is what the old street looked like, in 2,000 years ago. And they built it with cobblestones and, again, a very good example of Israel preserving its heritage.
Department of Antiquities is very well managed there.
Yeah.
That's what it is. Okay.
Okay. This is in the main quarter outside where there are little restaurants and so forth, and people can sit and rest. And that is a solid gold Torah. Torah is very important in Jewish religious functions, as you know, and these candles are lit, I think, at Rosh Hashanah.
Menorah, right?
Yeah, it's known as the menorah. And candles are lit for every day till the final day of the 7-day ceremony. This is in the evening, we went back to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. Again, it's a very fascinating place. So this is the inside picture of the church near the altar. We'll follow this with, I think this is a video.
Yeah.
And hopefully you can hear the Armenian choir that was assigned for that hour.
Depending on quality of my internet, sometimes it comes very good and sometimes very slow. We'll see. Just bear with me. This is Armenian guy, right?
Yeah.
I think on this day, Armenian, because 4 communities take care of the, depending on, just like Arun said, on the day we were there, it was Armenian community was responsible for the activities from morning to evening. Okay, so looks like my internet, it doesn't happen all the time, but it did happen here.
Yeah, let's go to the next then.
Yeah,
Okay.
This has all the music and all, but let's see how this.
So what is happening here is, the procession within the church with all the devotees, they're going towards the place called the Calvary. That is the site where Jesus was crucified, and they're all going there, with the Armenian choir. And that's what we wanted you to hear, but apparently it's not working. So this is coming down, and this is where the site where, it's very dark, you can't see anything. And that is where, Christ was crucified. And again, brought to the stone that I showed you on earlier slides and laid there, Go ahead.
Yep.
Okay. This is the Church of the Nativity, which is the birthplace of Jesus Christ. And the manger, it is underneath this particular little table that you'll see. And, you see the mural where you have Mary with the newborn child and Joseph. So
is
that
in Bethlehem or here itself? In the Bethlehem, or
This is in Bethlehem.
Bethlehem, okay. Which is in west.
West. This is also, by the way, part of the Arab
enclave.
Yeah.
We had extra security take the bus there to the nativity.
Yeah.
Okay, this
is the inside of the Church of Nativity. And what you will see in the next slide is, well, this church is very beautiful. You'll also see, murals of Mary on the walls that are presented, by different countries in honor of Mother Mary. And you'll see that in the next slide.
Two devotees from KAOCA are there. Okay.
Yeah. Well, this is the spot where he was born.
Oh, at the Nativity Church. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so this is the Israeli museum, which houses the Dead Scroll, and we are going towards that.
This is on day 5, right?
Yes, correct. This is the model of Old Jerusalem as it existed in 66 AD, 1:50th scale. And you can see in the far left, in the rear, the temple. That is how the temple looked like in those days. And the wall, the retaining wall, is this wall, which part of which it was a lot bigger than what it is, a lot bigger and a lot longer than what it is now. Already, let's go to the next slide. This is, within the museum, the women soldiers of the Israel Armed Forces greeting us. And you see, some KAOCA people standing there too.
All these people had their fingers on the trigger.
Yeah. This is an excavated home of an upper class nobleman. And what is critical is you see mosaic floors. Again, beautifully tiled floors with mosaics on it, very beautiful. And even in those days, people had those skills, which, are preserved even now by the government of Israel. Okay, go ahead.
This is all done by the excavation post post independence mostly, but the point is, they're taking and figuring it out underneath the street.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is a bath. So, whoever owned this place would go down into a little tub here, and there'd be water coming from there that would be warmed, with by fire or coal or wood or whatever. So, pretty luxurious life for somebody who lived in the first century, So a good life, as you can see. So this is the Knesset building, which is now in an area called Yar Givat, near Jerusalem, where the Knesset building is located. And, you see this handsome couple in the foreground. Following that, we also visited Yad Vashem, which is a memorial for all the Jewish people who lost their lives during the Holocaust. Unfortunately, you couldn't film anything there, so we don't have any photos or films. We also, in the evening, went to the Jerusalem Sound and Light Show, which we could not film or photograph because it was all done in the dark with laser beams and so forth. But a very exciting news show. So that.
Okay, go ahead.
No, that picture that we saw earlier on, if you is Mount Herzl. This is on day 6.
Ek minute. Yeah, no, Mount Arun.
No,
Oh,
next.
prior to that, yeah, okay. That's okay. We got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was the Mount Arun.
This is Mount Herzl, which is a memorial for the Jewish military who perished in wars that were fought against Israel. And this is a vista point, a very nice view. And at a rest stop, there were some Konkanis who went on camelback rides and, enjoyed themselves.
Yeah, we were heading towards Masada then, right?
Yes, this is going towards Masada.
Which is the southern part towards Dead Sea. That's where we were heading for.
Correct. So the next slide, we are on Masada. We got on Masada on a cable car because it's at quite a, I think 7,000 feet or whatever.
It's like a mesa. Mesa is like a big.
Correct.
Yeah.
And this is the fort that was constructed by these people. Just to give you a historic background, it was occupied by about 1,000 zealots. Zealots were fanatic Jewish people who did not want the Romans in their holy land and wanted to kick them out. Also, they did not like any Jew who talked about tolerance. They didn't like. So there were these extremists, religious fanatics who carried little daggers known as sicarios. And that's why they are known as the sicari. And they would stab the Romans, and then run away because nobody could catch them. They were pretty good in avoiding capture. So they occupied this land and the Romans wanted to get rid of them. So the Roman general Lucius Flavius in 73 AD laid siege to this fortress. And if you can go to the next slide, you can see on the ground, this is the outline of the Roman camp. There were many camps, but this one has still been preserved. This is the camp, and this is on the side is a ramp that they built to climb on top and bulldoze a hole in the wall, which was made of hard granite. So they bulldozed their way through and got in, but by then all these zealots had committed suicide. And there were only 2 women, I think, who lay bleeding. So out of 1,000 or 980, all of them were committed suicide except for 2 who eventually died. And that happened in 73 AD. This spot, meaning this Masada, the fortress, is used by the Israeli army to motivate their recruits, to show them how their ancestors defied the Romans, the mightiest nation on earth, and essentially defeated them and laid down their lives for their country and their beliefs. So the Roman army camp is what is very interesting. This is on top of Masada, where Herod built his palace. So you can see this is a model. And as you can see, very luxurious lifestyle. King Herod was a Jew, but he was a vassal of the Romans and he paid them gratuities on an annual basis. And he paid them, generously. And that's why he was favored by the Romans. But in order to get that money, he had to squeeze and tax his own people, his own fellow Jews. That's why he was hated, but he was a big builder, an architect. Okay, next. Yeah, this is the remnants of his palace that you saw the model of. And here's the outline of the Roman camp. And, the ramp that is going up. Of course, weather has taken a toll of this. Now, this is the
Dead Sea.
The Dead Sea that we're showing you. And this is in the Israeli side of the Dead Sea. And you can see people floating on it and, swimming. It's filled with phosphates and all kinds of salts, which are harvested by both Israel and Jordan. And as a result, because of the fact that it is an enclosed area, it's drying up and it has receded by miles over the last 4 or 5 years. So, they're worried that, the Dead Sea may not exist. So they're pumping water from the Mediterranean into the Dead Sea.
Sorry guys, my internet is 45 megabit down speed, but nothing is coming through. But
Yeah.
it's just my fellow.
We are going now to the Jordan Valley. And as you can see, Israel has managed to cultivate land and irrigate land very cleverly. And you can see, I think these are date palms in the desert, incredibly. They have unique irrigation systems, such as drip irrigation that they've invented. And they can actually grow grapes in the desert. In the South Negev desert, they grow grapes and make wine, which they sell worldwide. So, they're very, self-sufficient country and a brilliant people, very innovative and resourceful.
And Arun, just to add to that, when we were driving, we saw banana plantations, mango plantations supplying fresh food in Israel. Every hotel we went, we had all these things.
Yes, yes, yes.
Very advanced technology, irrigation methodology, everything way ahead of the world.
Yeah.
And IoT is used in all these things with the electronics.
Yeah, let's go ahead. Okay, this is another excavation of a Roman house. And you can see again in the middle, mosaics of animals and what have you. And, that is very common in Roman architecture in those days. So the Romans lived well. So we are now in a national park called Shenoy National Park. Again, there are many relics that they have excavated, which we'd like to show some of these to you. So here's a Roman town that they have excavated. And you see these pillars. These are all Corinthian style pillars made of hard rock, obviously. And, people, again, lived in a city that was pretty modern for that era. Yeah. And here's the main thoroughfare with a sewage line running underneath the street. So, even for that time, they had a very good sewage system. This is a part of the town. This is not as well preserved because of natural, problems. But, again, this is how the city or part of the city may have looked like, with all the pillars, standing. Okay, this is the amphitheater. Romans always built amphitheaters wherever they went. They had a good sewage system. Wherever they went, they built those systems. An amphitheater, a way to, and baths, a lot of baths that you will see, that are heated underground with stones, which was the technique that was used by the Romans. Okay, now we are in the Church of the Annunciation in Nazareth, again, an Arab area. And this is the Annunciation is where Gabriel appeared in front of Mary and told her that she was going to give birth to a son who was going to be the Messiah. And that is the spot where, the angel Gabriel appeared in front of Mary. Actually, we have a video. I don't know whether it'll run.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now you can see here these wall art. All of these were donated by different countries. They are very beautifully done. And there's one from India, but all over the world. And they're all hung on the walls of the church. So this is in Nazareth. This is one example of that, Okay. Now we're going up north to the town of Capernaum. Capernaum is a very important city in Christianity because this is where Jesus spent a lot of time. This is on the coast of the Sea of Galilee. Now, Galilee is called a sea, but actually it's a lake. But anyway, it's a big lake.
Pretty big, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So this is an excavated dwelling, which they said is Simon's home. Simon is one of the apostles. And, but anyway, it's one of the excavations that they've exhibited. This is another excavation which is part of an ancient synagogue. But we'll show you a little bit later actual household, or sorry, actual structure where people lived. This is an old synagogue from the year 70 AD. Again, it is built Romanesque style because by then the Romans had captured Palestine and their influence on the architecture was significant. But that is what you see right here. The altar might be at the far end, and the devotees might be sitting on the side or in the middle. This is an excavation of an ancient dwelling, which they claim is the house of Peter. Obviously, nobody has any evidence of that, but that is what they consider because it was adjacent to the synagogue. And remember, in those days, all these Christians were Jews. Okay? This is part of the wall of the White Synagogue that remains, to this date. This is a statue or a sculpture of Peter standing on a rock saying, wherever this rock stands, I'll build my church. So by now, they're all converted to Christianity. They're no longer following Jewish traditions. They are now Christians, and they're going all over the world preaching Christianity, which eventually was encouraged by Emperor Constantine in 300 AD, so that he became a Christian. The Romans were resisting Christianity for a long time, for several centuries. Already?
Sea of Galilee is in the backdrop, right? Sea of the Galilee is in the backdrop.
Sea of Galilee in the background, yeah. Okay, then we went to a little town called Safed, S-A-F-E-D, where Marc Chagall, the famous French painter, used to visit often. He was Jewish, so he'd come to Israel all the time. And this is a town that he would stay, a very little pretty town, that he would stay. This particular art gallery is dedicated to Nicky Imber, who was a local artist who did a lot of statues and sculptures and in that area that are famous for, which are even being sold now at very high prices.
Mm-hmm.
As you know, the Muslims captured Palestine in 700 AD, and this is a example of a palace where a caliph lived, the ruins of that palace, which still maintained. And this is the living room of the house, which is decorated with, murals, just to give you an example of the luxury in which these caliphs lived. Okay, this is a cable ride that we are taking to the northernmost town of Israel, known as Rosh Hanakar. So if you go to the next slide, we are now approaching the Mediterranean Sea, and you see a blowhole here, which is a natural, path for the water to gush towards land, with high force, caused by the small opening between the rocks. And that is our picture. And there's a natural bridge called the Pigeon Bridge or Lucky Bridge, that is on the giant rock above. Okay. Again, you see some KAOCA people taking pictures, very good looking.
It's all over the world.
Very good looking people.
There you go. Okay.
So this is Rosh Hanakar, and you see a virtual border between Israel and Lebanon. So, it's right here. So, and
she is straddling between the two countries.
Two countries, yeah. Okay. Now we are actually going to the baptismal site on the Israeli side of the Jordan River, which is the West Bank. So here's the town called Yardenit, and it's a baptismal site on the Jordan River. This is more, it's closer to the Sea of Galilee, which means up north. Whereas the Jordanians believe that the actual baptismal occurred about 60 miles south in another town, and we'll see that later. But this is the entrance to the area where the baptismal site is located. Okay, let's go to the baptismal. So here you see some Konkani people getting baptized or about to get baptized. And this is the Jordan River, which is famous in Christian history.
Video will not work, so I will go fast.
Yeah. So here's the Jordan River baptismal place, which again is promoted by Israel as the true baptismal location. So Christ was baptized here by John the Baptist, who was beheaded by King Herod's son, Herod Antipas. So King Herod the First did not murder any of these historic figures. It was his son who beheaded John the Baptist and sentenced Jesus Christ to death. Okay. Again, this is, this should have been an earlier slide, but we somehow missed it, but that's okay. Yeah. So now we are in a town called Haifa, and here you see the beautiful Baha'i temple. In the backdrop is the Mediterranean Ocean. And here in the foreground, there are beautiful gardens. This is a sight to see and a great place, a great location for a Kodak moment.
7 levels of
Gardens, beautifully done, because it comes from, from mountaintop downwards. So here's the Baha'i temple and the Mediterranean, turquoise blue waters of the Mediterranean, which my wife loves. This is a ancient Roman theater to which we are entering. Again, the Romans had many structures within here. This is a Byzantine ruins. The Byzantines came to power after the death of Constantine and ruled that area. So all the way, I think, to up to 500 AD, the Byzantine Empire was very strong in this area.
This is Caesarea as well, right? Caesarea.
Yeah, and they were very much influenced by Roman architecture. This is another site of the theater that, this is the site of Herod's palace. So all of this area used to be a palace, and this particular little rectangle was used by him as his bath or swimming pool, whatever you want to call it. And going this side, he would hold chariot races. So a small section of what used to be Herod's palace remains. Most of it is torn down or looted, whatever. But that is what he lived in luxury, and he was a fantastic builder. This is the beach promenade in Tel Aviv. As you can see, a beautiful, south of Tel Aviv, south of Tel Aviv is the old city of Jaffa that we'll see on the next. Here there are a lot of beautiful restaurants, you can access the beach if you wish. Very nice area. We enjoyed it. And the backdrop, you have the town of Israel, town of Tel Aviv.
Tel Aviv is a brand new city built.
Very brand new. Yeah.
And one other comment on this is, Tel Aviv is the best city for vegetarians, and it's the city with maximum number of vegan places.
Yeah. And again, it's a high-tech capital where a lot of startups are being built. There's a little suburb of Tel Aviv called Herzliya, which is like the Silicon Valley of Israel.
And it's so safe. Even the single girls and women walk there in the midnight past, no crime.
Yeah. Okay. There's a architecture that was evolved in Germany in the 1900s called the Bauhaus, Bauhaus. And what it does is combines the aesthetics with everyday function. So you see, the doors designed in a certain way, the windows designed in a certain manner, very smooth curves, sharp edges in some situations. But it's a new type of architecture that is common. This is occurs only on one street in Israel, and a lot of such houses. Many American millionaires and billionaires have houses here, especially Jewish, built to this architecture, this type of architecture. Very nice, beautiful. This again, as VP was saying, the vegan capital. So you see some Konkani people having vegan food and vegetarian food. The food is very good, lots of salads,
Yummy.
hummus, and a lot of interesting type of preparations. Even the desserts are very good. This is Old Jaffa. The Jewish people call it Yafo, but essentially it's a very old city, and the port here is the oldest in the world. So, a lot of trade used to occur, from this particular port in the old days. Again, you see this handsome Konkani couple in Jaffa. Um, this is the plaque of a chapel of the Jordan River. Now, gradually you're approaching the country of Jordan, but this was built during the Byzantine period in the 5th and 6th centuries AD. And this is the chapel that exists now, obviously renovated, but this is the type of architecture that the Byzantines used to build their churches. This is the Jordanian side of the baptismal site. And this is about 60 miles south from the Israeli baptismal site in a town called, I forgot the name of the town, but it's referred to as Bethany beyond the Jordan. So Bethany, they say Beth Yani in Arabic means the house of John. So John apparently lived here. You can see a little cable that runs in the middle, which we're seeing this is the Israeli side. This side is Jordan. But you can see Israel has maintained that place very beautifully. We didn't go here from the Israeli side. We saw this from the Jordanian side. And the water is kind of murky here, so we didn't do a lot of baptizing in this area. Okay, VP, you want to take over here?
Yeah, okay. So before I go to the other pictures, one comment. This is on Jordanian side. We are now in Jordan. And this is just an illustration of the Dead Sea on Jordanian side. And here we are taking the mud bath, which is famous for its medicinal qualities. People come and hang out there for applying those mud. And this is another picture. Okay, so after this, thanks Arun for all the great, first half. Now I'm going to go to the other half, which covers mostly Jordanian part of the map that we shared with you. I don't want to go back there, but this is basically, we are starting with a place here called Moses Springs. Basically, Moses Springs is an area where Moses, lived and had finally died in Mount Nebo in that area where he got instructions from the God how to work and create the state of homeland or nation of Israel back in those days. With that setting, one of the things that shows up in this part of the Jordan is all about mosaics. Every other house and locations is filled with mosaics. And when we are in the springs, which is mostly in Nebo region, we see, this is the tree of life, which is basically in Christianity, is highly valued. This picture where the tree depicts and then the animals are all creation of the God, which rely on the tree, whatever the tree gives is produced, and the life cycle continues. That their vision, but this is all depicted in the form of mosaics, and Jordan is very popular for the mosaic, and we will be seeing mosaic in every place that we go to. And we had some mosaic factories also we visited, bought few things. And for example, this is one place, I think in the Mosaic Springs, our Mount Nebo area. This is inside. I think this is all re-excavated and retained for the purposes of pilgrims coming there. This is part of the Holy Land. So you would see everywhere, you know, cleaned versions of the mosaics to show how much Christianity in the form of mosaics was being, uh, you know, being spread out to the common population of different faith. Now, only reason I'm showing this map in Mount Nebo, this is what, Moses was given instruction from God. Looking at the top of the mountain, this is where should be promised land. So from the top of the Moses, that land, you will be seeing all these locations where the modern Israel and, all these conflicting areas are. You can recognize the distance from Mount Nebo. Dead Sea is visible. You can see this without any binoculars because we're on the top of a mountain. So, this is what he was given. While going to that place, Moses was also given a staff which has serpent, because there were a lot of serpents in this. So the staff was given by God to Moses to protect the people who are in the process of, creating this promised land. Example, see, this is in one of the Mount Nebos. As soon as we come, we go to the church. I believe Holy Land, Moses, house of Nero. So this is monument there in front of the church. So this is on the way down the hill. The travel agency arranged us to go into a private house. He is a Jordanian citizen, but he found out that underneath his house there is relics from the mosaics from past generations, and he dug it out and cleaned it up, and now he throws it for any travel tourist people to come and look at it. If you give him money, he'll take it. But nice guy, he was very nice in explaining. English is so-so, but that he was proud of his heritage, even though his Christianity, Jordanian is primarily non-Christian country to a large extent, but Jordan is all over, Christian period. So this is again the tree of life in Christianity. You see it everywhere, including Masaba, which is Madaba, next one where we are heading to. But the point I'm trying to show is this picture depicts everything is life is built around the, the circle of creation and sustenance. That's the kind of message from the tree. Now, this is Greek Orthodox Church. There are several cultures have come to that part of the world. This town is called Madaba, and it is one of the most famous for its mosaics. Everywhere you find nothing but mosaic stores, mosaic factories, mosaic things, selling the art and making historical. This is one of our she reminds us of what's her name? We used to make teaser for her, look like one of those Hollywood stars. She said she gets that compliment all the time. Okay, though this is now what is it called?
Crusaders.
Crusaders Palace, right?
Yeah.
At the Kalat Ash Shabak. That's the name of the place. But this is the remains of the palace. And if you see, here is the real name of the area. And this is the remains of that particular palace. Now, after we finish that, then we are heading to one of the most famous in Jordan, where tourism is the biggest industry in Jordan. There is not much industry. There are only three things. One of them is potash. One of them is tourism. And tourism got suffered a lot over the last 3 to 5 years. And I heard even after the current pandemic, the tourism is down to zero. But during Syrian crisis, people were coming from other places to here. So the tourism industry tanked. If you go to Jordan, you will see thousands of Syrian refugees after Syria threw them out. So what we did is we are now entering Petra. Petra is UNESCO's one of the 7 wonders. It really is a wonder. It's out of this world. And that's why one of our goal was to go and explore that in our walking through the Petra region. Petra used to be is the capital of Nabateans. It's another tribe dating back to maybe 2,500 years, which is they adopted. They're very good artisans in doing the artwork out of the rocks, which is all red rocks here. And the prime entrance to the famous Petra city, which used to be capital city of this Nabateans, is called Siq, S-I-Q, which is basically a maybe 10 to 20 foot wide crevice in a stone structure, which is bone dry most of the time. And then the water supply comes from I don't know where, but they have fantastic water distribution system in this. Sikh is the place where you take to see the architecture and the palaces, the tombs, everything that was built by Nabateans. But historically, what I heard from Arun also, nobody knows what happened to them. They're suddenly missing since quite some time, meaning the Nabateans were the primary original tribe that settled in this area, and nobody knows exactly what happened to their extinction or otherwise. But here it is, an inside photograph. Video probably won't work it. I'm sorry. We are now heading towards one of the main streets of Petra city, which is the capital, and also commercial path of the connection between Middle East and what have you. But here we are walking through the maybe 15 to 20 feet wide crevice in the stones. It looks like, so compact, but we are walking towards one of the most beautiful architecture, which you will see in a minute. And to reach there, most people, from the entrance of the visitor center to that main center where people identify as the main icon, people take, because it's about, I don't know, maybe 5 miles or 3 miles, I don't remember now exactly the details. To reach that main architecture itself is, people get tired because it's about 2,000 feet above the sea level, this land. That's not the highest. As you go later on, we will see much higher altitudes. But they use horse buggies, which is rented by some of the local Jordanian people who tribesmen who make their living out of this. Now, just to finish this, there are other modes of transportation, which is hand-drawn carts, just like they do it in India. So there are a variety of things, but there is no gasoline-powered stuff. But mostly this type of thing. They can probably even carry you. That's the kind of things. It's pretty hot there. Most of the year it's about 80, mid 80s through early 100 degree type of temperatures. Now, this couple gets married there. This is a true marriage wedding place for Nabateans back in those days when they created. It's a holy place where their priest would tie the knot. And this rock is the main thing that is the distance between the two couples. Here are the KAOCA couple, the most famous couple that we have, and they're getting married. We didn't get invited, but we just barged into the wedding. Now, within 100 feet or 100 yards from there, the way the tourist guide takes here is unique. He makes us hide behind the walls that are, but then suddenly he says, "Open your eyes." Then we see this. It's you have to be there by early morning to get this soft light. It's amazing. When we open the eyes, we never even expected to see a marvelous architecture in front of us. This is how you get introduced to the real Petra city. This is not the best architecture, but this is the most iconic picture of Petra, just like anything else. Here, this is all hand carved by the Nabateans in this city. Nabateans is the tribe that took this city into this kind of shape of today. And it has withstood times. And as you go from here, we have to go another 5 kilometers to the end. And on both sides of that road, which is not continuation of the Sikh, SIQ, but we see on both sides marvelous hand-carved such architectures which has tombs, which has palaces that were rulers. There are Byzantine architecture. There is Greek, meaning Roman churches. It's, we need 3 to 5 days just to explain that. So, as we like to do shorten the story. So this just gives very high, 20,000 foot level explanation for a UNESCO site. You have to be there to explain this to the best extent. But this is the best at this point, I think. But look at this is our team, and we, one of the this is our guide here, and we are, I think, 15 in the team, very nicely presented, and one of the local guy took the picture. I wouldn't say this is the best, because as the light changes, the picture changes the beauty. This is a video. Unfortunately, I don't have video working at this time. If anybody is interested, more than happy to give a link to many of this picture. In fact, if anybody has time to do that, I might have had about 10 to 15 videos, which saves some time, but these are worth seeing when you have time. But as required, I will give to Kedar and Preeti, then we can decide what to do with those. Okay, this is one example. As you go inside, and we have another 3 to 5 kilometers to go, you come across, and these are all, if you go to the internet, you will see some of the names for each of the, these are probably the tombs for the Nabatian, royalty. They're all marked exactly what is there in each. See, these are mules carrying people, and a lot of people taking those. They might cost 5 to 10 dinars, which is Jamaican, rather Jordanian money, which is pretty good actually. Jordan used to be British colony until 1948. They're just like India. So here we are. Some of the only reason I kept this is a Byzantine church. Trail. There are a lot of trails which people pay and do the hiking, and there are a lot of nice places to stay in Petra to do this. Some of the trails are long, and Jordan is famous for hiking as well as mountain climbing. Mountain climbing means rock climbing and all. I saw a lot of pictures. I didn't go there, but this is one example on the Sikh or in the Petra city. These are actual live models guarding the Roman gate of the Petra city. See, everywhere you see ruins of various things that are done by, thousands of years ago or hundreds of years ago. But these are live guys. When you see them, you feel you're suddenly in a Roman city. Now, continuing, this is the last stop on that Sikh. This is where people take turn and go back to the gate. And from here, it's about 2 or 3 miles. On a hot day, that's pretty good long walk. So a lot of people change and say, let me go on a camel, or let me take a horse buggy, or let me take a mule ride. So a lot of options are there. So what we decide, 2 of us decided to go to the monastery, which is about 2 miles to the top. It's 4,000 feet above the sea level. Temperature goes anywhere from 95 to 105 because it's all granite at that point. And so the journey continues for 2 of us. Kumla and I did this because that was one of the dreams that I had to have to go to the top and look at the entire Jordanian valley overlooking Dead Sea and what have you. So that's the reason. And it was okay. It took us about 2 to 3 hours to do the round trip. But along the way, we saw hundreds of vendors, just like in Tirupati. If to go to the top, you have about 10, 12 kilometers of walking. And there are a lot of people who come there and set up their stores in the mountain, and then they wind the store in the night just for a few dollars. That's all they do. And it's sickening when you say people working so hard to make few dollars per day. I mean, it happens in India too, but here it's okay. With this, when we reached to the top, I didn't show all the trail because it's pretty hard. Here we are looking at the what is called monastery. Its monastery is actually in the right and all. It's even more beautiful. See, this is the real monastery carved out at the end of the monastery top. This is where it's about 4,000 feet above the sea level. And it's pretty hot on a typical Jordanian afternoon on the time when we went, which was May. I think May around 15th-ish. It is, it's pretty hot, and there are not too many tourists here. Some, people who really want to go through the fun. But here you can go inside and start looking inside. Nobody will stop you because at Khajana or the treasury building that I showed in the building, it's heavily guarded because they don't want anybody come and vandalize it. Here, vandals come in, but there's little vandalism to, to recognize. So that is the big deal. This is another view of the monastery. And the monastery at one time was used by the Catholics and monastic people to save the Christian literature here and their tradition. That's the reason why monastery become big deal there to save the Christianity from a lot of attacks happened in this part of, at one point I'll share one slide with multiple cultures attacking between Israel and Jordan, how many cultures have attacked and how the population there has kind of survived. So the next day, when we go to the what is called as Wadi Rum, Wadi Rum is one of the most well-known desert lands in the Arabian side of the peninsula or desert. This is the Lawrence of Arabia where the movie was shot. Okay, and it's miles and miles, kind of rose-looking stones. Everything is desert land. Really, temperatures are very, very high. You have to have proper, water, everything. So unfortunately, I cannot show you the ride. We have about 5 to 6 miles in that desert land. Beautiful rocks around, in and around. It's worth seeing when you have time. If I give the link, that's something you can go through and look at the beauty of the desert. Even though it is desert, we come across a lot of people, tourists, taking motored, tours in motorcades. They come in 5 to 6 jeeps carrying from buses like us. I know we came in maybe 20 people in 5 or 10 jeeps. They put 4 to 6 people in a jeep and do the. That's part of the discovery tour that we had. But here, what I want to show is, on one way we stopped our the caravan of the jeeps, and here is the Bedouin. Bedouins are the nomadic people of the Middle East. They go from historically. So here is the one tent. As much as these tents are built, these are places where they live, and they, tourists come and buy things which they create, mosaic things and many other handicrafts. And I'll show you one other place where, kind of things that they produce and sell it to the locals. Visiting tourists. And this is very interesting to see because everything is different from what we are used to. So good thing is, see, this is a caravan of camels waiting there. I think the people are probably taken on foot to do the nearby exploration, discovery of such mountains. There are little trails here. They have maintained trails where you can go and see. These are beautiful. They're as much as they're easy, but they're hot. So we can do all those trails. If you plan your visit well, these trails can be easy to access. And Jordan is famous right now for, this is one of their biggest revenue streams, where hiking in many parts of Jordan, there are good, well-maintained trails for miles and miles. And a lot of Westerners and Easterners do the trekking there. So this is the, on the way back to the Wadi Rum camp where we started. We're coming back. On the way, we took a rest where this tour guide is giving us the typical, the tent where, people can rest. These are normally cooled the way they build the tents, but everything is there. Unfortunately, the video doesn't work. It shows all the craft that they sell where you can buy and bring home. All these videos are about 35 to 60-second long. Not too bad, but for some reason I'm unfortunately not enough to play anything today for some reason. Okay, here we are. Finally, before we get out of Wadi Rum, here we come. This is called, on the Google also you can see it's called Hassan Zawahidi camp. This is where they make, there are a lot of camps here where people come and stay overnight. These are all solar cooled, nice looking tents where you can stay, have the rooms. and at the same time you can hike and all. But here, that's the name of the one of the sounds away the camp, and it's on the map also. Now here, inside you come, it's completely air-cooled, tent. All of us, have been treated for a very nice lunch here. We stayed here probably 30 to 45 minutes with beautiful Jordanian. We had vegetarian food for the vegetarians, but for non-vegetarians, their lamb, which was done the Jordanian style outside. Just like in Hawaii, they do those, in the ground, smoked lamb. That's what they did. And oh, here is the Bedouin woman. You might recognize. She's enjoying the vegetarian dish on the bread, Jordanian bread. And once we finished that camp for that day, we were heading to most famous another UNESCO saved place called Jerash. At least in Jordanian word, it's called Jerash. That's an historical city, well maintained from the historical times about, I don't know, AD, Arun is good in remembering the dates. I'm sorry, I don't have the exact dates, but it's
No, 70 AD.
there you go. Thanks for jumping in, saving me. But listen, guys, I'm happy to see you go walk. When it comes to memory, I'm little getting weaker now, but this is beautiful. This is part of what is called a Mount Citadel. This is filled with relics, you won't believe it. And in the background, that is the Jerash city, which is modern city of Jerash, which is outside Amman. Amman, you guys know. Amman is the main city where we came to. From there, we take the motor bus and come to Jerash for day trip to this out, outstanding. I mean, obviously Petra is my best out of the whole trip, but Jerash is probably the next best. The only negative thing about Jerash today is so many Syrian refugees. After the Middle East problem of Syria with current political upheaval, this place has so many Syrian guys trying. I mean, crime rate has gone up apparently. They're all over the streets. Nothing against them, but you can see the Syrian refugees all over the place. Jordan used to own Syria as part of that. They were owning even Palestine at one time. But the only problem I see is because of the refugee problems, which has been historically true in many, parts of the world. But now with that, introduction, this is called Amman Citadel, and we are seeing the relics of the those times in the city of Jerash, which is the gateway to the multiple types of structures which are in ruins. But there's history behind every temple: Artemis temple, Byzantine type of structures. There's all kinds of culture over the period of time because of so many cultures have come and attacked one way or other. And I will present a short history after this thing in a couple of slides to show you the amount of cultures that have come from outside. This is one of the cardos where Corinthian things like everywhere we saw in Israel and continues in this part of Jordan. Everything is these are all very rich areas in those times, very royal families and their family members or families from the royal favored ones used to live in this kind of quarters, and the working class people were also in these same neighborhoods with not as best as, but these are all malls. Cardos are the malls of the people doing. They used to set up their stores during the daytime and sell their expensive stuff for the royalty and things like that. And one of our royalties is here. Okay, so with that, we have another royalty walking on the, see the beauty of the land. Here is another look. This is just probably 1/100th of what we see there. Yeah, each of us have like 500 to 600 pictures. Hard to see which one to select. But I think by talking like this, at least you get a picture of what is there in Jordan and Israel to make a trip. We did total 14 days, 2 or 3 days extra for travels. So that's kind of This is a nice picture which I wanted to show in real video. This is one of the marvels that I had seen. This maybe 100-ton column. This guy, or he shows with a little car key. He can move this little. See here, he puts a little key, car key, and the whole uh, column can be moved a few inches, 6 inches on the, maybe 8 inches on the top, but it moves like 1 to 2 inches at the bottom. So the technology of designing, meaning if there is a wind or something, these columns can withstand easily 30, 40 miles per hour wind, or maybe more. I'm very conservative, but the point is, just like Ashoka Stamba and all we have in India, similar technology was there in back in those years, as we all know. But because of the so many religious strifes, these are all in ruins. Not because of the nature, because of the man trying to eliminate the other side of the population. This is the historic cities. I think this is a modern gateway to the Jerash that they put. In the background is the I think Jerash city, which is common people live there. And this is one something called Amman Citadel. A small portion of the Jerash city is called Citadel because that's the foundation of the whole Jordanian part of the Jerash and such. Okay, so that's the last picture in my album. We have probably 136 pictures, of which about 15 videos, select videos of 15 to 30 seconds, maybe one or two about 1 minute each, which is swimming in a couple of Dead Sea, where if you see it how we float, some of us floated. You can go deep 1 mile and come back. There are people doing that. None of us did that, but Kubula, for example, floated for about maybe 20 yards or something like that is the one that I wanted to share with you. But nevertheless, I want to show you one or two slides, and then I will finish off the basic story on what we wanted to share with you. This is part of it is brief history of Israel. Basically, Arun has given us a very good picture of Israel, but I wanted to a little bit embellish that with a couple of slides. One is Israel is the very embodiment of Jewish continuity. It is the only nation on the earth that inhabits the same land, bears the same name, speaks the same language, and worships the same God that it did 3,000 years ago. You dig the soil and you find pottery from Davidic times, which is like 3,000 years old. Coins from Bar Kohab, I don't know who it is, but 2,000-year-old scrolls. I think we briefly talked about scrolls from a place called Qumran, which is where they found the Torah back in, it's a little cave where the little boys, Bedouin boys found that, and that's what he's talking about, which is the basic testament written in Yiddish or Jewish language. The people of Israel, who are called Jewish, trace their origin to Abraham, who established a belief that there is only one God, the creator of the universe, who they call his Torah. Abraham, his son Isaac, and the grandson Jacob, whose name is Israel, are referred to as the patriarchs of Israelites. The reason I'm bringing that Israel is attributed to Abraham and his people, meaning his immediate family. The reason I'm saying that is every religion that is born in that part of the world is called Abrahamic religions, and which is west of Afghanistan. So Abrahamic religions, three of them which you heard from me, and there is a Zoroastrian, which is also on the left side of what is it? What it is? The country, and to the east of Afghanistan, most of the Eastern religions that we know, Hinduism, Jainism, all are on the west. So that's why the reason I want to show is we are used to a lot of Abrahamic religions, but not as much to the other, Eastern religions. Hinduism, everybody knows, but there are so many other religions, non-Abrahamic, which is, in our culture. So just wanted to give you the clear difference between the Western and the Eastern philosophies. Is divider line is Afghanistan, which is near Kandahar. With that said, one last slide I want to show on the, this is what I wanted to show you. Why it is such an interesting, this normally applies to Israel and Jordan. Foreign empires that ruled that part of the world, which is primarily all where we went to, starting BC, before Christ era, Babylonians, and then Persians. Hellenistic is obviously Greeks, Roman Empire, and then followed by Byzantine, which we didn't explain too much, and then the Arabics and the Crusaders, which is coming from mostly from European side, trying to eliminate other ones. Mamluks are the tribe. Ottoman Empire, as you know, which is talked about Sultanate, Caliphate, and all. Finally, ending in the British hands. Obviously, all of us were ruled by British at the end, from 19, in the early century or maybe even earlier, leading until 48. Many countries were liberated in that kind of late part of 50s, 40s. So I wanted to show how much influence has come from various religious strife that happened and that's why there is so much diversity. But Israel stands out because their language today, same as what was there 3,000 years ago. And that's what the quote was from one of the Western guys here. And this guy is well known, Charles Krauthammer. He, puts in this, he picks it from this book to say that how the Jews were so protective. And the reason I brought it up is KAOCA is one such effort to preserve through all the children's activities and all learning. Konkani is very important, so that we should be emulating, if not do that same thing in bringing our language back to and then obviously Preeti and Kedar are trying their best. Thanks to the current pandemic was very good. They're organizing many events for us to come together, including the children's activities that they have on a weekly basis. And I just wanted to say thank you. And Arun, probably you can also give the closing words. I want to thank KAOCA for giving us an opportunity to share with our experience. Arun, take the
the same. I want to thank Kedar and for giving us this opportunity. We enjoyed this trip, and we're encouraging other KAOCA members to also perhaps one day take this trip to Israel and Jordan.
Exactly. Arun, thanks. And what I want to tell in closing comment is we finished about, our goal was to do this in the, before 3:30, we have 3, which is planned. And then we want to give 30 minutes for any questions you might have. And again, to justify the whole trip, which we have like 1,000 pictures between 3 of us, maybe more. We could have covered a lot more, but it's impossible to do everything right justice. But what we wanted to let the community know that if any one of you plan to go there, we are more than happy to share the pictures, videos, can give our experience. We can tell, what kind of agency we use, but important is we're there. In 90 minutes, what we did is just a bird's eye, which is 30,000 foot level. So feel free, and I think they have recorded this session for posterity. And if you ever think about going to Israel and Jordan, I worked in an Israeli company, so I had prior knowledge on Israel a lot. In fact, I met friends when we were there. So feel free to get in touch with and I know Hundi also did some touch during his travels, and he presented about several weeks ago his experience of travel in. So between 3 of us, and there are maybe more people, have not tried to pick. So there is idea here is to share our experience. Should you decide to go there, feel free to, and that's the purpose of the travel diaries, to tell you who might be the right person to give some help in your travel decisions at a given point. With that, I give the stage, and I don't know, Kedar, you can tell them how to ask questions, and Arun and I will handle the questions as we listen to the questions.
Sure. Wonderful presentation, VP Mom and Arun Mom. Really enjoyed it a lot.
Thank you.
And if anyone has questions, please unmute yourself and ask.
Yeah. No question is simple question. Go ahead and ask any question.
Maka three questions saji.
Common answer?
Mika now Bhami Shenoy Mano.
Namaskar, Bhami.
Namaskar.
Bhami ma'am. Yeah, sorry. I heard you last time, I guess, in the
Uzbekistan.
exactly Uzbekistan. You'll go there sometime.
Yeah. ये फर्स्ट क्वेश्चन कसं म्हणा रे तुमगेल या ट्रिप पारी तुम कसं नाही जावं कष्ट झालं बाय म्हणून तुम्ही पुरा चांग जाणार सांगला कसं नाही निमती कष्ट मला युजली कसं जात मला या ट्रिप पुरा वतना कोणाही जेव्हा मोस करताची जेव्हा कसं नाही जेव्हा खंपून होता आम्ही इटली राबच्याशी नाही इटली कोण होती की कसं नाही जेव्हा खंपून व्हायचे नाही म्हणून ज्याला त्या बारी एक मिराकल सो तशी कसं नाही जेव्हा जाला म्हणजे या का दोन्ही क्वेश्चन कसं म्हणा रे तुम्ही खंयची एजंट दवरला मागीर विंगड एजंट आयकून आसचे पुरो खंयची एजंट दवरचे चांग म्हणून मागीर तिन्ही क्वेश्चन एजंटान तिला आम्ही वचून तें करूं जाता बाय म्हणून तें तीन क्वेश्चन
Okay, I will answer the first one. Second one, I mean, we can all answer. Arun, second, you can talk about gate. So the first one was more about, question was about, yeah, I'm forgetting quickly, but first question, that is on the,
तुमकां कष्ट झालं बाय म्हणून कोणाही
ah,
जेव्हा
okay, yeah, to be clear, the company that we used called Gate One Travels, they are well known, they're a little bit high end on the cost because they take only 15 people, the way they handle all, you know, 5-star hotels everywhere. Every place we stayed was 5-star, vegetarian. Vegetarians are treated that way. There's only one place where we had one little problem. And it's not something that removed our best experience. In traveling in Israel, when we took a taxi from where we stayed to go to one evening, we wanted to do a little shopping in, I forgot the name of the market, but we had to take the hotel guy, which is a Jewish hotel, Sinai, something, Mount Zion Hotel, which is a 5-star hotel. He said, you know, take any taxi, they don't cheat. But it happened to be a guy from other side, meaning West Bank. So he was, you know, he said it won't be more than $5 to $10, the whole thing. So when we reached that, you know, he said it's $30 or $45. So that to us, it was a little shocker. That was the only time we got cheated. But it was not something that we could not handle. It was a little bit surprise to us because the hotel guy, when we came back, we told the hotel guy, hey, we got, you know, did you take the number? Because we can call the cops and they'll go after the guy and, you know, they'll punish him on his. So that's all one thing. Otherwise, from landing to the point of handoff back to the, and airport is, everything is arranged, even cross-border, which was done by the travel agency, because typically crossing from Israel into Jordan can take sometimes 2-3 hours. In our case, it is probably 35 minutes. The bus came, the travel agent released everything. They had everything in advance from us, and they come back and say, okay, you guys all have been stamped. We will leave the bus in 10 minutes, get onto the bus. That's how easy it was. Once we go to the finished part of the Jordanian, they bring us to the final airport in Amman, and they make sure that we are, I mean, this is, travel agent is well known for taking from the airport back to the airport. That's how they do, you know. So absolutely smooth operation other than that little, you know, and safety was not a problem. Israel is well handled. Everybody knows in Israel, they take everything ahead of your arrival. They know exactly what you are, where you are being. So that's for guarantee. Safety in Israel is very well. Jordan is not necessarily that, but if you are with the right company, you know, that's not a problem. And the Gate One Travel is, which Arun has good experience prior to, I know, since he was traveling with Sujata, I said, we'll join you. And the cost is kind of, you know, medium to a little bit high end. That's the kind of, the cost here is about 7,000, including the per person I'm talking about. That does not include additional little things that we might have taken. Roughly $8,000 per person, that all inclusive, including some small trips that we take. Airport, hotels, everything is done. And then if you want to do shopping in for example, one of the best diamond factories is in Tel Aviv. I forget the name now. The name of the factory, it's a well-known diamond factory, and that's where we went. You can buy as much as, you know, $100,000 diamonds. So those are all ours to you know, bear. But the point is, $7,000 to $8,000 you can. But if you want to do it on your, yes, a lot of my Israeli friends said, why are you using them? But look, what we have to do is you want to hear, you want to know, this I've done many times using, and on my own I've done it to Peru and all. It cost me only $3,000 as opposed to $10,000. So to me, it's a matter of how much ease you want in the in the process. But yeah, you can do it equally safe with yourself or after doing some research. You can do that, but that research will take a good chunk of time. But you have to make sure you are with the right people. In this case, our goal is to get the right facts out of the, and it's all done in English. They give you each of the attendees of this, we get our own handset. Even if the team is walking fast, the front guy where the guide is talking, we can all hear in English. Even if I'm 20 yards behind, I'm not missing anything. So that's a kind of company that makes sure that everybody can listen what the guide is talking. So that's how much I can tell you. And on the question 3, we'll come back. Question 2, Arun, maybe you can talk about the why you chose and
Oh,
yeah.
VP ma'am, before we proceed, can you stop sharing so we can see
I see.
mom's faces?
Okay, sorry. I'm कसं करतो stop sharing no?
Stop sharing के लिए तुमके तोंड wait thank you.
Okay, no problem. हाँ मानी के बीच आते हो सब से नहीं तो तू सांगता रहा बीच बहुत okay.
What was the second question?
Which travel agency and why?
Oh, travel agency. Yeah, that's gate 1 we use this time. There are these tour groups that they conduct to various locations. So this was, Israel and Jordan. And, as VP mentioned, it runs into several thousands of dollars. But the ease of it is, they make all the arrangements. They even make your travel arrangements.
Yeah, everything, visa, passport, everything is handled by them.
Yeah, so you're there safe, and you don't have last minute surprises.
I took because of my age group, I took a little insurance just in case. I mean, though I had friends in Israel, I didn't want to take any chances not to be burdened to anybody. Typically, I take insurance. It's not necessary. Gate 1 also gives good travel insurance, which is about $200-300 per person. If anybody is concerned about their health, we are both in good shape, so we didn't really. But if something happens while traveling, if you get hurt, that's the kind of scenarios I didn't want to handle on my own. But I shared that with Arun also. But it's optional. That's the kind of thing that I take on personal basis. Now, third question was Bami Mam question. Third question. So first was that. Second was.
Can you travel by yourself?
Oh, wait. So that obviously you have to do a lot of research. Our goal was to be as much worry-free when we are there, and by knowing the PhD guy, there were 2 PhD guys who are doing. They're Israeli guys on the Israeli side. They're doing PhD in religion, Israeli religion. Once they crossed Jordan, we got the Jordanian PhDs in travel, expertise. They answer every question. What you have, if you learn, I think. In the case of Arun, did a lot of study on, that's why you can mention all those dates without any problem. I have problems unless, I had written it in cheat notes. I could not do that.
The difficulties, if any, going yourself is you may have difficulties with the language. So of course in Israel they speak English, but if you go to France, not everybody speaks English. If you go to Italy, maybe there's some English, maybe not. So, you have to manage all these difficulties, which are language related. So that is that could be another. Second, you go on your own. There's a good chance that you might fall victim to somebody deceiving you on the pricing or whatever. And so you've got to look at all of that. The travel agency advises you on where to go, where not to go, and things like that. So you feel a little bit more comfortable.
I agree. It's worth going with a little good name with established. Now, under pandemic, a lot of these companies, Gate 1, I checked, they're probably operating at 10% of their capacity. So everybody's impacted. What will happen post-pandemic needs to be seen. But Gate 1 has a very good reputation to this point. And I think Arun used it for multiple things, Europe as well as other trips. His friend circles have used Gate One many times, Italy and things like that. So that's one of the reasons I kind of blindly did the same as what Arun and Sujata did. So we didn't have to do too much research at all. So any other questions? Thank you, Bhami ma'am. And any other questions?
VP, is there a particular time of the year better to travel there?
Yeah, it's better to look at the seasons wherever you're going. So we keep, picked early May because that's the spring season in Israel, or towards the end of the spring season. So you want to make sure that you go in the right season, so that you don't have any weather-related difficulties.
Israel has a hot region which is called Negev Desert, where a lot of Indians are settled.
So that's the southernmost part, is the Negev Desert, and a lot of Indian Jews from Maharashtra actually live there, and all of them have like Maharashtrian type last names. Ends in a K-A-R, Kar.
Yeah, I've met them in hotels when I went to Israeli business trips. So they're good, but they all have Jewish genes. That's how they're admitted. A lot of people from.
They still speak Marathi though.
Yeah, but genetically they're all going to the same. You got to have genetical connection there, I think.
Yeah.
So yeah, like he said, depends. The Mediterranean portions of Galilee and Haifa, pretty much they're good most of the time, because that's on the Mediterranean on one side, the other end is Sea of Galilee, which is very good. Dead Sea, Dead Sea, one thing I didn't mention, Dead Sea has receded about 1 mile or 1.5 miles since I saw the last time. 1.5 mile, the ocean. So Israelis are, have a technology and a plan, political, to bring the water from Mediterranean Sea to pump into and bring it back to the original level. But they are making all the studies, how much impact that will, because it's now 1/3 of the original level when they, when they got the independence back in 47 or something, when the country of Israel started. They're very good in keeping the numbers. So it could happen in the future that they might do it. It's a very expensive project, but they have a plan to pump water from one side of the ocean, which is the Mediterranean side, into the Dead Sea. Because Jordan controls the Jordan River, they can turn off water into Dead Sea by turning off the Jordanian flow. So the water politics is there in that country, but I don't know if that is intentional or whatever, but Israel works against all those things in a very creative way.
Yeah, we, engineering obviously is a, powerful, technology that they have. They're very strong in that area, and they're very innovative.
Netanyahu is very pro, obviously Modi, India,
technology, right? So there's a lot of seawater purification systems that they've built to keep themselves, with a rich supply of water.
Biggest desalination plant is about 30 miles or 40 miles west of, Tel Aviv. I've seen the pictures. I've not been there. Big. It supplies humongous amount of clean daily water. So this Israeli engineering is determined to live there. And again, they've been very tolerant.
I barely get any cards.
अनेक कसं म्हणा रे तांकां इंडियन्स म्हणा भारी प्रीत खंय त्या वयवर तांकां इंडियन्स पळयला भारी तांकां एफेक्शनेटली तांणी उलयताची खंय पुराय म्हणून हांव आयकलेलो तुम्ही did you feel that experience?
Absolutely, because I worked with a lot of Israelis in US, and I've been to their factories in Europe. I mean in Israel, 3 locations: one in Nazareth, and one in Netanya, which is actually Caesarea, and one in Tel Aviv, which is where we had. But what is the issue is like this: all Israelis dream. You will be shocked. First, after they finish their 2 or 3 year mandatory, they go to Goa. First thing they do is go to Goa.
Goa and Banaras.
Yeah, let me start with this side. What they do is they backpack from starting with Goa, and they go to a little bit south, and they do all the temples and everywhere, all the way up to Kashmir. This is their 2-month backpacking. Even the Israeli that I had shown in the picture, one guy who came to see me, he has done that, and he takes India like crazy. He's taken his family with 3 kids and wife to India 3 times, Goa and North. He loves Indian food. Every time he comes here, I want to go there, chat house. So that's a kind of, and in general, Indian and goes very well. I don't know on the political side what could go wrong on the long term, but taking help from them in protecting our long term health of the nation in the sense of security, it's phenomenal. And number 2 country in the world, barring what's going to happen in this country, I think Israelis are probably the best. It's only 9 million people, and the culture is very multicultural. Even in the city of Tel Aviv, there is every culture from Africa to, there are cities, little towns in Northeast. They have brought the entire Jewish-based Indians from Assam area. So, they give very good, and the Orthodox people are fully supported. They don't need to work. From birth to death, they are covered. Okay, that's simple as that. They don't consider that as handout. They practice religion the authentic way. The modern Israelis, they're very religious, but they don't practice as much in this. So they have both spectrum of the both sides in a way. But I like them. I like them in the sense they love Indians. There's no doubt.
History sangir pulun mak bari kos jal mama.
No problem.
Wait. So the history 2000 3000 BC do kono aaj time pura sangon kon thai ai mi time pura ai kono. That is really the best part of going on a tour, is to know the history. And you did a great job of.
No, Arun did study also, because I did this just to show. I said, I want to look at, I don't know who was the invader and all. When I looked at all the names, then it made sense to me. And absolutely, I can, pinpoint which part of, Caesarea where I went before even this trip. People used to tell me, Crusaders. They talked about Canaans or whatever, the original people of Canaan or whatever. Arun knows the exact pronunciation. So to me, I said, okay, I got to look for a place where, and this was the 75th anniversary of freedom. They created a book. I went to their tourism site. That's where I looked at it, and that's where I got that comprehensive picture of the multiple, cultures coming into Israel and Jordan to invade and kill the, Jewish heritage. But they survived. They still survive. Already Arun mentioned about their tolerance. They normally give up to protect the peace. Like you said, during they wanted to give some of those, prominent lands, and only the extremists said no sharing. So, to me, it's a nation that understands living in peace requires give and take. So that's a kind of Israeli tolerance on one hand. I like it. On the other hand, yeah, sometimes, India has been always pro-Palestine back in 60s. When I grew up as a school student, I never understood we used to think that Palestinians are, but if you look in perspective, the way we know today, Israeli, I'm not suggesting everything what is happening from our current situation. Golan Heights was given when we were in Israel. One day, yeah, that's one bad experience I will tell you. Golan Heights was our one location we did not go that day. President here announced Golan Heights is from here on goes to the Israelis. That's one day. Our tour operator said, it could be risky for taking our buses, because part of it is under the, West Bank type of, Palestinians or Jordanians. So they decided not to take us. Instead, they took us to some other place. We covered all of that. But Golan Heights is one thing that they scrapped. I think in that place we also went to the diamond factory, because we took about 2.5 hours to go to the diamond factory and look how the diamonds. Israel is number one place in history in the world after India on polishing diamonds and making. Israelis are good in also diamond setting for creating the jewelry that people buy. So Israel is very big in diamond jewelries. So we, instead of Golan Heights, we went to the the diamond factory in Capri. Yeah, Capri. CAPRI is the name of the factory. Very big factory. We were taken inside how the diamonds are polished, and we saw the place, and then there was a sales section where you can buy, diamonds. So that's the, that part, but they handled it. They know when is the situation, since the gate one is well connected with the Israeli politics. They, there are operators on each plant. They take the inputs from them. Is it worth bringing? They don't want any mishaps. If the bus is attacked, especially on the day when we went to Bethlehem, which is on the, trouble side of the, they're not as troublemakers, but anything can happen. So we had 2 policemen with us in the bus. With obvious Uzis or something like that, but we are pretty safe. We got out. They need our business. The people in Palestine, which is in Bethlehem, is in Palestinian center. So very small place, but they know that tourists bring money, and we tip them well. Even if you give them $5 just for that, they make a good living for that local currency. So that's the short and long of safety and fun. Any other questions from the audience? So Kedar, if there are no questions, obviously, I invite, and Arun will likewise send any questions when you are ready to travel to Jordan or Israel. We'll be more than happy to share more.
Yes. Thank you very much, VP Ma'am and Arun Ma'am. Once again, wonderful presentation. And next week we will be having another Arun Kalyanpur and Sheila Kalyanpur, Arun Ma'am and Sheila Pachi, who will be talking about Thailand, Maldives, and Indonesia, Bali, Indonesia.
Thank you, Arun and Varadrai. We enjoyed the presentation. Hi, Sujata.
Thank you, Veena.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Mom.
Great presentation.
Oh, you're welcome. No problem. So I'll get out of the meeting then.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Live the trip again. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Sujata. Good to see you.
Good to see you too, dear.
Bye. See you in a bit at 4 o'clock, Kedar.
Yes, see you at 4 o'clock.
Yeah, bye.
Bye.